Please remember that nothing we say here should be taken as personal advice. The conversation is for entertainment purposes only. If you have questions about your financial situation, please talk to a licensed financial advisor.
Let's go.
All right, welcome to another episode of Future Money, where we talk about the technologies of the future
that would make us money.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Ayal Shmilovich, managing partner, Gerber Kawasaki.
And Hatem and Ayal, also managing partner.
Well, unfortunately, we're doing this podcast in a not so great time in the world. We all know kind of what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, and
incredible, right? March 2022, right? And we have a ground war in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to spin this. We like for this podcast to be fun and entertaining, and it will be. But we would be remiss if we did not start with a somber tone as to, the crap that's going on in Europe right now. Yeah. And, we all feel for everyone in Europe. Hatem, obviously, you have a lot of family in Europe.
Yep.
And it's just terrible what's going on there.
Tensions are high, man. Tensions are high. We're going to talk a little bit about history today, too, because I think it's important to put this in context. But you see those images, those brave Ukrainians are fighting, to the death. You're seeing a lot of women, old people, young people, and all these guys, they had a normal life 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And today they have to fight bombs and learn how to use, Kalashnikovs and all that stuff. So our heart goes to them. I think the response from the world has been fantastic.
Absolutely.
Also, this is not a, we still love the Russians. We just don't love the leadership of Russia.
I think it's important because sometimes we say Russia, Russia, and we don't mean all Russians for sure.
Yeah.
We mean Putin.
Correct.
And not Russia.
And his cronies.
Putin, I was going to say Putin and the people in charge right now.
Yeah.
Some of which I wonder if they're also like, what the hell's going on right now?
So let's talk about that. This, despite how bad things are, right? Yeah. The world has seen a lot of wars, right? And I know you're a big history buff. You love history.
Love history, yeah.
Yeah, and it's good. I'm reading a great history book myself right now, and it's good to kind of see where we were and where we are today.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start there, maybe. No?
Yeah, this isn't the first war we've ever fought, and it won't be the last in the world, unfortunately. We wish that this weren't the case right now, but historically speaking, let's first talk about markets real quick. Generally war is not a bad thing for markets. Unfortunately, we talk about the war machine.
Good for business.
Yeah. We talk about the war machine a lot. There are a lot of companies that stand to profit from this. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But historically speaking, I'm confused. I'm not really confused, but I'm a little bit confused about what Putin's doing. I always say don't ever underestimate the power of a crazy person.
Right. I think he is crazy. I think COVID got to him, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what's his end game here. There's not a lot to be gained here other than,
he pissed off a lot of people, and it does not make any sense.
Right. So a lot of people that he's pissed off at this point compared to historically who he's pissed off is he's pissed off a lot of people with a lot of money.
Yep.
Right. Let's Abramovich, this guy from the Chelsea.
You want to go there, right?
Let's talk about him real quick.
First of all, I will talk about Abramovich.
Okay.
Because I'm a Chelsea fan. Not an Abramovich fan. I'm a Chelsea fan.
That's good.
But let's talk about these oligarchs, right? Yeah. So there is basically, I don't know, 50 to 100 Russians that are called the oligarchs, and they basically own 30% of the wealth of Russia. Okay?
Yeah.
30%, right? In America, we have, I think maybe 2,000 plus billionaires. They own about 10 to 12% of the wealth, right? So the concentration of wealth is just obscene, right? And how they made their money is in 1999, when the Soviet Union collapsed, they had all these enterprises that were owned by the government. And these guys were close to Putin and his friends, and they basically divided the pie. So someone got all the oil, someone got all the nickel, someone got all the gas. So basically they privatized the whole government, and with it the wealth of Russia. And
privatized with violence.
Yeah, like, you know, you got to kill a couple people to get on top. You know,
you don't become a billionaire in Russia in the fall of Soviet Russia without getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, none of those guys got their money by being good people.
Yeah.
None of them worked hard for it. All of them basically stole it, you know.
Yeah.
And now what they're doing is they basically obscenely showing their wealth all across the world.
Yeah.
They have, some of them have 5-6 jets. They have, you know, $200 million yachts. They have properties all over the world, from Malibu to Saint Tropez to, you know.
I love how Hatem says Saint Tropez. Can you say it again?
Saint Tropez, baby.
Yeah, it sounds so good. Way better than when I say it. But did you see the video of that one yacht being blown up?
Yes, I've seen the Ukrainian mechanic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we don't condemn.
We don't condemn violence, but, you know, that doesn't make me feel badly for an oligarch getting their stuff.
So these oligarchs, man, they're very close to Putin, and that's kind of how it's almost, it's a back to the devil, right? They made all this money, and they stayed close to him, and what Putin has done is really disturb their livelihoods, you know, because now they can't roam free in London, where their kids go to school, and their mistress is in Paris, you know.
Yeah, and what's the fun of being a billionaire if you can't go anywhere or do anything?
Exactly.
You know, and I think that's where I look at historically where things go wrong for dictators is generally when you piss off the people with a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because they have the ability, you know, and I'm not talking about Putin here because I have no idea, you know, who can get to him and who can't. But in general, historically speaking, and you know, the flashes of Julius Caesar come to my mind when I love history, and I specifically love, you know, ancient and medieval history, and basically what we're seeing here is an ancient and medieval mindset.
Yep.
Which is, you know, conquer you, spoils of war, that kind of stuff, and it didn't end so well for Julius Caesar.
Yep.
When he pissed off a lot of the wrong people.
He got killed by someone from the inside, right?
He got killed by many people from the inside, not just one.
Right.
And this was a guy who was the most powerful man probably the world had ever seen at that time. And
I mean, the Roman Empire, like how big it was, half the globe basically.
So, and this guy had the head of 50,000 man army, and all behind him, like at that moment. And eventually he got killed from the inside. So when you piss off people who have billions of dollars, and now with sanctions, all these guys are cut off from the world.
Yep.
That generally doesn't bode well. And that's one of the optimistic scenarios.
I think I'll tell you my bull case. I have a bull case, and I actually just, we're talking about this with a friend. The bull case, you will wake up tomorrow, and then we have a message saying Putin is dead, and Russia is coming back into the fold. We want to engage with the West. We want to be democracy or some kind of system that is positively empowering people and giving freedom and so forth. That day, the stock market will be up 5%. Oil will be down $50. You know, and that would be my the best case scenario for the world.
For sure.
You know, this is one of the biggest regimes that is still outside the Western norms, let's just call it, right?
Yeah.
But with nuclear weapons.
With nuclear, and a lot of them, not just a few.
Exactly.
And so it, you know, there's definitely risk there. And that would be an amazing scenario. The chances of that scenario happening anytime soon are fairly low. But again, once you piss off enough people and your stock market's down more than half, and you're cut off from the banking world, and your ships are being blown up, and everybody.
Let's not minimize like the impact of these sanctions. I think that's why these sanctions, we can't engage with Russia on a nuclear standpoint because obviously that's a mutual destructive,
mutually assured destruction.
Right,
that's
exactly.
An old throwback to the 80s guys and before.
But sanctions will, first of all, the Russian people are going to suffer the most.
Yeah, for sure.
The ruble is down, I think, 60 or
70%. Yeah.
Right. Every company on earth is no longer selling anything in Russia.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Except for Samsung, they haven't stepped up yet.
Samsung not yet.
No, so
really?
Apple did. Well, at least not since this morning, because Apple and all the all the companies have.
It's really amazing to see how fast the West or companies really kind of stepped up and started really.
Yeah. And I definitely think, I think that was a gross miscalculation on Putin's part. I think
100%.
he thought that this would go like Crimea went in 2014.
Yep.
And the whole world rose up against him at once, which is highly encouraging.
Yep.
In the face of what and being Jewish here, this is not hyperbole here to say what is essentially kind of reminiscent of September 1st, 1939, speaking of history, when someone named Hitler decided to go into Poland.
Yep.
Right. So, and again, I'm a Jewish person. My family has had people in the Holocaust. And this reminds me, this is no different than that.
It's first of all, how proud of you of Zelensky.
Dude, Zelensky is my new favorite person in this world.
I think every woman in this earth has a little crush on Zelensky.
Dude,
I have a crush.
I have a crush on Zelensky too. Yeah, that guy's amazing.
Yeah. No, but listen, the moment, leadership is defined by moments of crisis.
Absolutely.
And this guy being he was a comedian and he was most joke. Unreal. What a story.
Yeah.
The Hollywood movie is going to be amazing. I don't know who's going to play him.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an amazing story because he's going to win. And I have no doubt that freedom was going to prevail because like Hitler in 1945 died in his bunker because after inflicting damage on millions and millions of family that we still feel today. I think every person that does this kind of violence will end up, I think, or I hope that's how it's going to end.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's people in Europe right now, in Ukraine, who still are alive when this happened the last time.
Listen, you don't go anywhere in Europe without going to the Normandy cemetery or Dunkirk or all these places, and all you see is the remnant of us defeating pure evil, which was Nazism, which is literally pure evil. And I think that's what Russia is today, or at least the Russian.
So after all the negatives here, right?
I told you what my bull case is, dude.
No. What I'm saying is like, right now what's happening in Ukraine is atrocious, and there's daily lives lost. Thousands of people are losing their lives, but freedom comes with a cost,
right?
And so again, we are definitely with our hearts and minds with the Ukrainian people, and everyone in the world. The good news is almost everyone in the world is with them.
Yep.
So with that, let's change gears a little bit and let's kind of talk about, what does this actually mean for markets? You talked about Swift code, you talked about sanctions. Talk a little bit more about what that means that people don't actually understand it.
Well, first of all, right, part of the sanction is we cut off Russia from every financial system that exists in the world, right? The Swift being like the simplest, which is basically a network of transactions, bank transaction. It's literally just a network of the 4,000 plus banks around the world for them to be able to move them around cash, right? But what that effectively does is Russia being such a big exporter of oil and other commodities, it just cuts them off from the system. So if they sold all those barrels of oil, they effectively cannot get paid.
Yeah,
that's what happened. So, and that's really, really
devastating
devastating to economy, right? So I think this war is not just obliterating the Ukrainian economy, it's really killing the Russian economy.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's not a huge economy. It's $1.5 trillion, I think, is their GDP, 50% domestic. So the only thing they have is just what they export, which is oil
and wheat.
Some commodities too.
And so the Swift system, they're cut off. And I think a lot of people, we talked about the stock market plummeting and all that, and all this will cause pain, but it's going to take time. Unfortunately, if we don't come to a swifter resolution, ceasefire. Right now they're talking about ceasefires and safety corridors and all that.
I don't trust that guy. I don't trust any.
Of course.
He doesn't really want to negotiate with anybody. And that's why I said my bull case just needs to die.
Yeah. The other option is, and the only way I see an easier option out of this that's not him dying is there's, he's in over his head, and I think he knows that now, but he gets, they have some ceasefire, he gets some territory or something just to sort of give him a safe face, let him pretend like he's a war hero to his
I don't think that's in the books anymore, man.
Yeah, I don't know,
I don't
man.
think it's in the books anymore.
So with that, we have, so they can't move their money, they can't do any of that. The economy is going to slowly spin out of control.
So the ruble is down 60-70%. The stock market is down 80%.
It's crazy.
So from an investment standpoint, we don't own any Russian securities. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a trader at a fairly big investment bank last week, and he's like, I was asking him about what's going on with Russian bonds, because every government has a bunch of bonds outstanding. Yeah, and I was like, hey, I was asking him about him, and he's like, listen, if you're a trader and last Friday you went home long Russian bond, you would have been without a job on Monday. Yeah, so
there are no Russian bonds.
There's no Russian. Yeah. So everyone sold off. I think the MSCI, all the indexes are removing Russian securities from their holdings.
And they should.
So it's done.
And they should. They're basically at this point just a terrorist regime.
That's exactly it.
And we've gotten emails about, money coming in from anywhere else, new standards for Russian,
we
that
did
kind of stuff. Yeah, so we're in the financial system, obviously, so we have to be aware of all this stuff.
There is something called KYC and AML, which are very important things whenever you trade money or you manage money, which is you're gonna know your customer and you're gonna make sure that the money is not dirty.
Yeah, so for those of you who know, KYC, know your client, AML, anti-money laundering.
Correct. Yeah. And so we're very aware of this, and I think every financial institution around the world is doing this stuff. Yeah. Even our we have relationships with some Swiss banks that we work with, and even how credible what they did.
The Swiss, ladies and gentlemen, have gotten off their neutral pedestal for the first time in history.
Yeah,
and taken up an attack on Russia, a verbal attack, I should say, not an actual attack. But the people who didn't even take a position against the Nazis are taking up position against Russia, which is, again, leads you to believe that most of the world is better off than it was 80 years ago. Some of the world is not, unfortunately, but most of us have learned and grown from bad experiences of the past.
Yeah. So what the Swiss did is basically they said they're gonna not apply their secrecy laws on Russian money, which means if you're Russian and you got some ill-gotten funds and wealth, they're gonna find them and they're gonna freeze them. Yeah, like Europe did, which is fantastic.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Swiss banks are generally a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing.
Not all of them, but most. Yeah,
many Swiss. I shouldn't say all of them, and it's almost never all. But
I was reading this. There is exactly as much money in in offshore accounts held by Russian oligarchs than there is in Russia itself, held by all Russians.
That's crazy.
So the numbers are just really staggering.
Yeah. And that's why it's important that they cut them off from all these international banks too.
Yep.
So speaking of ill-gotten money and secrecy laws, one of the things people are talking about, pro and con, is crypto during this time. So does crypto, number one, present a loophole for Russians to trade their rubles to Bitcoin or whatever it be?
So how many oligarchs have USBs with a bunch of Bitcoin on it?
and I am surprised that we didn't see a jump in Bitcoin, really, just on the idea, not necessarily the people buying it, but just on the idea that two of these countries might transfer money into crypto. So what do you think about, number one, the Russians' ability to circumvent this stuff through cryptocurrencies? And then is it going to be beneficial to Ukraine to be able to transact?
Well, they can't, right? Because as much as crypto is, you can trace it and so forth, you can actually see every transaction, right?
Yeah.
So the Russian government can go about a bunch of Bitcoin and just start selling oil or buying guns or whatever with it, right? So it's going to be tough for them to do that. Is it a bunch of oligarchs converting some of their wealth into Bitcoin and really moving it around on a USB? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I think Abramovich is doing that. You
Yeah.
know,
You think he has like a hard drive with like $1 billion on
he's
it?
got to. He's got to, man.
Yeah.
He's got to. I mean, it's a perfect thing for that.
But that's, you know, I think it's important because I think for those people who aren't as well versed in crypto and Bitcoin specifically, I think the thought is it's still like let's say it was 10 years ago, where crypto was a way for illicit transactions to happen.
It's not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, where you bought it on the dark, you know, use it on the dark web to buy drugs or guns or things like that. And for those of you who don't know, like, you know, granted that happens, but people use cash to buy guns and drugs also. So it doesn't mean that cash isn't. But actually, every transaction is recorded on the blockchain.
Correct.
So you can reverse engineer some of this stuff to basically say, no, Mr. Russian oligarch, you can't do that.
Well, it's also interesting, right? Some of the crypto exchanges now are putting a blacklist of people,
right,
so they can trade crypto on exchanges,
yeah,
right? Which is the antithesis of what crypto stands for.
Yeah.
But I think, again, crypto coming to light, right?
Yeah.
Coming to be part of the financial system.
Yes, there's always, when a new technology comes, right? I think there's always a push and pull with a new technology. And if we're talking about history, I'm going to go back in history for a second again, to talk about things that have sort of changed the game sometimes. And the first thing that comes to my mind is the printing press.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always,
you're going back, bro.
I'm going back. Listen, I went to Julius Caesar. This is 1500 years later. I mean, come on.
All right.
That there's a massive influx of people who want to be part of this system, and there's sort of the idealist view, right? Yeah. This is going to revolutionize. This is going to be everything that changes everything. It's going to democratize everything and do X, Y, and Z. And then what happens is reality sets in over time.
Yep.
And people and big business gets involved. In the case of the printing press, the church got involved.
Yep.
And governments got involved. And what happens is you sort of get this, and if we're going back there, then I'll move forward and I'll talk about, we had the advent of the internet, let's say 400 years later. When the internet came out, nobody knew what the hell it was. It was a military operation first and foremost.
Yeah.
But when people got their hands on it, they're like, oh, there's going to be no rules online anymore. Everything's going to be a free for all.
They just still no rules.
There's a lot of rules for Facebook. Yeah. But basically, there's always this push and pull between this libertarian idea, and what actually happens in reality. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing with crypto now.
Yeah, too. it's an adoptive phase, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, it's a good thing.
Yeah. So if you hear, what's one of the Bitcoin founder guys, the libertarian, the guy who's like,
Bitcoin Jesus?
Bitcoin Jesus. What's his name?
Brock? No.
Oh, I can't think of his name. His last name starts with a V or something. Yeah. But anyway, this is like the ultra like crypto deregulation. Nobody can touch it. Nobody can trace it. Leave me alone. He lives in South America now. Doesn't want anybody ever like. So that's not realistic. That's the old way. And now it's decentralized, which is great. But ultimately, there has to be somewhere you can go to fix things.
Yeah. So because it's future money, Bitcoin, crypto is a winner here, right?
Yeah.
It's a way to circumvent some of the controls for sure.
Yeah.
But also, it's not something that you can use just for that, because there is ways to trace it.
But but now do we enter a time, right? So now the world sees what can happen when you have a crazy government, and what can happen if something goes wrong. And whether you live in Turkey and your inflation is out the chart, your currency is down 80%, or you live in Russia and you have a crazy dictator who's doing X, Y, and Z, or anywhere else, doesn't it make sense to at least have some of your money
100%.
stored in a sovereign currency?
100%. And you've seen that. You've seen the amount of rubles being changed to Bitcoin, especially over the last week, has, I think, quadrupled or quintupled. So it's been, and also in Ukraine too, by the way.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. If you're in Turkey, that's been the case. If
Zimbabwe, all these places in the world, we're very fortunate to live in a country where things are stable most of the time. And I use stable as a relative term because last January we did have an insurrection. But I said insurrection. But for the most part, our currency, our economy, our government is stable.
We're freaking out about 7% inflation.
Yeah.
That's
that's the highest we've seen in 40 years.
Yeah, but
the year I was born, actually, by the way.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, all right.
That's the last time.
40th
It's
birthday
all about.
coming up. That's right.
I got another month and a half to live in my 30s, that glorious 30s, guys. So yeah, I mean, we live in a relatively stable environment, so we don't really get the concept of you wake up, next week and your money is worth half of what it was last week.
Yeah, Venezuela,
another great example. So I think crypto is a winner here, not even on the short term, but on the long term. Because of this.
Yeah, that's absolutely one winner. Losers, oligarchs.
The losers. I mean, are you calling them losers, or are we saying
no?
That
they're losers here.
I
mean, they're big losers.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I think nobody was fun of them before, but
no,
they didn't. They threw good parties, they bought nice yachts. And
let's go back, because we talked about Abramovich, who's the owner of Chelsea. So tell people what he did yesterday.
So Abramovich, who bought Chelsea Football Club, which is a London club, Premier League club, which any respectable oligarch will do when you sell a gas company that you stole for $25 billion. You go and buy a London football club. Which, by the way, under Abramovich, Chelsea has had some of the best trophies, or earned or won the best trophies that you could have won over the last 20 years. So Abramovich put a lot of money in Chelsea. And I won't geek out, but Christian Pulisic, who is called Captain America.
Captain America?
Captain America. He's actually the captain of the U.S. men's soccer team. Amazing player. Plays for Chelsea.
Okay.
So the irony there, right?
That's awesome.
Captain America plays for Chelsea.
Captain America. Because why would he play here?
Why play? I mean, it's a top flight club. That's where you want to play.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're good at soccer, you're not
football.
Playing. You're not playing. No.
Yeah.
This is America.
Yeah. It's America.
Our football is what I went to was where
GK
I watched the Rams
win. International, and we call it football. Okay.
Nah. My Rams won the Super Bowl in football. Anyway, so
Abramovich owns Chelsea, and when this whole kind of broke down, or this whole Russia invasion happened, him being under pressure, and it's important to kind of put their background. So he's a Russian oligarch, but also he could not get into London because he was convicted of some things. So he actually his visa was rebuked, and he's become a citizen of Israel because he's Jewish.
About that.
He's Jewish. He's actually a citizen of Portugal as well. So he has a European passport. But anyhow, he basically put the club for sale, and he also said that all the profits from selling this club is going to go to the Ukrainian people, which is a really, really amazing thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, when the guy who, basically stole all your country's resources and sold them for a huge profit is selling his club and saying he won't take a $2 billion loan that Chelsea owes him.
And then going to the Ukrainian people. That's the idea. I think he's just trying to circumvent being arrested, because he's also fire selling $200 million or £1 million worth of real estate in London, and I'm sure every Russian oligarch with assets right now is freaking out. And I think that's what's happening. But this can't be good for Putin. These are the people that were supporting him.
That's going back to that, man. If people lose enough money, then nobody's safe at that point.
That's exactly it. And we hope that's
the case. Although, if history is also a guide for us, generally when there's a power vacuum, that's not great either.
So Chelsea is up for bid between $3 and $4 billion.
I could risk like $5 grand. What do you think? Should I bid?
Don't know. GK is gathering some money. I know. I talked to Elijah. we're working on it.
So let's talk about, all this stuff. Let's talk about, this is called future money. So let's talk about making money.
Let's talk about making money.
Where can we make money in these markets, right? So we have inflation, we have rising rates, and we have major geopolitical concerns.
Who said best time to buy is when the blood
is in the streets. I don't know who the origin. I know Warren Buffett says it a lot, but I don't know if he's the originator.
There is literally blood in the streets.
Yeah, there's literally. This is what they meant. They literally meant blood in the streets. And I know it's sad to say this, because there actually is blood in the streets. But these are the times, right? That you find opportunities.
So historically, any of these geopolitical conflicts, usually have been historically a really good buying opportunity, right? They never feel that way. They always suck. You know, you're emotionally drained. You're watching these bad images. People are dying. Markets are all over the place. They can't make sense of what this means. We have a threat of nuclear war. Yet, over time, you'd probably make money if you bought stocks right now.
Totally. I mean, I like to say that we had a threat of nuclear war for almost 50 years.
Yeah. Well, even during the missile crisis in the 60s.
That's what I'm saying. So, but like the threat of nuclear war with Russia went on from 1945 or 1948, whenever Russia actually got their nukes, until 1990, essentially.
Yeah.
And I would argue that it hasn't actually stopped, but let's just say up until the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So this is always going to be a thing lingering in the back of our minds.
Right.
But yeah, the Cuban Missile Crisis is a great example of a legit nuclear threat, not a unspoken nuclear threat.
And this is why, as investors, you have to tune out this noise.
Yeah,
you really do. And this is kind of what's the hardest. And this is why, you know, you can look at like a 30, 50 year, 60 year chart of the stock market, you see it kind of going up. But, you know, people to understand there's a lot of these 30, 40% moves all the time. Yeah. And that's what people can't take.
Yeah. Because it hurts, guys. It hurts. And it hurts us too. Just so you know, if you're
emotionally
listening, you know, I always say the worse I feel when I'm pushing that buy button, generally the better buy it is.
Yeah. So you make money by being disciplined, you know, by
what kind of things can we buy here?
I mean, obviously,
like what does well in these environments?
You gotta look for quality, right? You know, you don't want to be speculating times like this.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So
we've already seen that, like,
right?
Speculative stocks getting obliterated.
Right. So what's good quality right now, right?
Yeah.
The companies that have good cash flows, companies that have good products that can have some pricing powers, right? Inflationary pressures. So those are the things. So we're improving the quality of all of our portfolios.
Yeah.
That's some things that we've been doing.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Cutting speculative positions.
Yeah.
Focusing on quality.
Yeah.
Adding things like industrials, right? Commodities, things like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, oil is $115 a barrel right now, whatever. We will never buy oil. We don't believe in it. I think it's structurally a declining asset class, but it's the best asset class this year.
It's literally the only asset that's up this year.
Right, exactly. So if you're buying oil right now, you're chasing.
Agreed. I think oil's way too high. WTI is back to the level it was in 2008.
Yeah, exactly. So when you talk about this, like solar and sustainable energy, I think is a huge winner.
I mean, my God, is there any bigger sort of like rallying point to the acceleration towards green energy than this?
To get off it?
Yeah.
But if oil, oh my God, I cannot think of a better thing. I mean, I wish we did it 10 years ago, right?
And you know what? It's just like think about, like, he has no levers if he doesn't have oil.
Right.
Like nothing. And it's not just him for that matter.
Saudis,
Iranians, right? Like that, like a lot of these
common
countries, Venezuelans,
here, right?
You know, a lot of oil generally outside the US, a lot of oil dictatorships.
Totally. Because listen, you're basically digging these, you know, black gold out of the ground, and you have no incentive of sharing the wealth. You just, you know, it's whoever grabs the most has the most money. So he creates these violent regimes with the House of Saud or, you know, Chavez or whatever it is,
exactly.
You know? So I think the opportunity is with sustainable energy. Right. It's no secret. We love Tesla here. You know, I drive a Tesla. I have solar panels in my house. I have batteries. I'm not worried about inflation. You know? because I don't go to the gas stations.
You don't go to the gas station, and unlike Rivian, Tesla will not raise the price of your car by $20,000.
No, they changed it today. Did you see what happened?
I didn't. What happened? Did they reverse?
They reversed course today.
Oh,
so I got a really nice email this morning from what's his name?
I can't remember his name.
The CEO is saying that they messed up and the communication around it was awful. Yes, he was. And they will honor the initial price of people who have their reservations.
So you're grandfathered in.
Yeah.
If I go on and reserve today, though, I'm paying $90,000.
So I made $20,000 a Rivian car right now.
Let's just see if you get a car at all.
2025 maybe.
But you're right. I mean, the electrification. This is just another step towards the electrification of the world, right? Tesla, without Tesla, this doesn't exist. We've revisited it 100 times, right? But it's not just
everyone,
Tesla.
like Rivian. I think every sustainable
cars
EV maker is going to do well, right? Like this is what we need to do.
EV, and really not just EV, but solar.
Solar are huge, right?
I follow Solar Edge very closely. Israeli company,
amazing Israeli company.
Love the company. Solar Edge and Enphase we follow. These companies, like solar inverters, for those of you who don't know what they do, they make solar inverters, which basically transfers the energy from the sun into the energy that you actually use in your house. And these are the two best at it. These, over the next 5 and 10 years, like there's no better investment than these kinds of things, in our opinion. And then we have things like lithium and all the stuff, all the bricks and mortar that go into it.
So listen, I think global warming and Putin are the greatest threats to this world right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And we can solve both by investing in sustainable energy and renewable energy. So I think that's a big winner.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity.
And once again, I'm going to throw the Israelis one here.
Oh, they're the best at this stuff, man.
So I'm trying to follow this one company. The problem I have with cybersecurity, so there's a lot of really good companies. The problem is they all do different things, and I'm not technical enough to know, what brick force attacks or versus this attack or that attack. But there's a company that I follow, SentinelOne. I'm looking further into CrowdStrike.
I'm a big fan of CrowdStrike.
CrowdStrike's a great company. Palo Alto, Fortinet, right? Like
CyberArk. All these are great companies.
So cybersecurity, right? I like to talk about like defense and cybersecurity. So I always have this existential question, like, what is technology, right? Technology.
How much time you got, folks?
So people always say like, oh, we're investing in technology. Like, is Amazon a tech company? I don't know. Is Google a tech company? Maybe.
Totally.
Is Apple a tech company? I'm not really sure, because there was a time where railroads were a tech company. Yeah. Right. So defense, to me, like defense and cybersecurity are kind of one and the same now, right? Because this is the defense.
Well, a lot of defense companies like Northrop do a lot of cybersecurity, right? So
and eventually there's,
but if you're selling missiles, you're a defense company,
right. But cybersecurity is defense. Right. It's just a different right? Because who's defending our missile systems?
Right. That's true.
The cybersecurity.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So defense and cybersecurity will do well. The cybersecurity is also they're like a big industrial companies. So they're lower PE stocks.
Yeah.
They're they do better in an inflationary environment because they have pricing power also. So, not a bad idea to have some of that too.
Yeah. I mean, not the most ESG companies out there.
I read an article. I can't remember if it was on Bloomberg or what it was, but it's like the article's title was "Defense is now okay to be an ESG play again." Right. And
marketing, baby.
Marketing.
Love it.
But like, if you think about it, one person's war is another person's defense.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not the most ESG. You're right. If you're selling bombs, bombs and guns, it doesn't look amazing. So cybersecurity is a way that you don't have to sell bombs.
Correct. So those are the winners right now. And this is kind of what we're doing at GK, is trying to really look through the rummage, through the rebel, and trying to say, hey, what are names that have been obliterated? No pun intended there. But create some really amazing opportunities, because when we invest, we look at the next 5 years. You don't look at the next 3 months, right?
And I think continuing to own the stalwarts like Apple and Google. Like, I looked at Google the other day. Google, for those of you who don't know what a price to earnings or PE ratio, and then we use PEG ratio, which is growth. Like Google grew at 35% and it's trading at a 20p. It's trading the valuation is lower than like I think what did I look at? It was like Albertsons or something, like something crazy. And I'm like, why would you pay more money for Albertsons than you would or Kroger or Costco is like twice the valuation of Google.
Yeah, I know it, and this is what corrections are good for.
Yeah,
you know, people sell everything because they're scared, they're emotional. You know, and if you have, and this is why if you properly manage your finances, you probably have different buckets for different time frames. You can kind of get through these times and look back in 12, 24, 5 years, whatever, and 12 months, 20, 24 months or 5 years, and like, oh, wow, that was a really good time to buy. And that's been, you know, always. Never say always, but that's been
historically, right? We don't have a crystal ball, but if we just all we can do is follow history. And so we have that, and then you know, obviously we talked about crypto, so I think crypto is a winner here again, just by what we talked about before. And then I have a question about oil here, right? So we have a tale of two cities now when it comes to oil, right? So for the Fed, on the one hand, the rise in oil prices is going to slow the economy, right? It's a de facto tax on Americans right now here.
Yeah. So inflation is caused by price of going things, or price of things going up. Oil being an input to pretty much everything, right? So when oil prices go up, huge inflationary pressures. And also so really kind of
slows the economy,
hurts the economy.
So if you think of the average person who, you know, works at a job 9 to 5 and comes home and pays their bills and is struggling to make ends meet, and they're, you know, oil prices are up 40% in the last month.
So that's going to throw the Fed a little wrench, right? Like they have to think about, we're going to increase rates because inflation is high, but also the economy is slowing down. How much do we want to slow it further? Right.
So
it's not a good place to be.
They got this limbo act going now, and it's going to be interesting to see. And I got to commend Jerome Powell because he's been walking this tightrope for, honestly, I want to say really since his first mess up, which was in 2018 with the China trade war things, and when he started raising rates, and then he's like, oh, sorry, my bad, and backtrack. And to his credit, one of the things I respect the most about Jerome Powell over other people that have been at the Fed, who many have been very good, is he messed up, and he owned it right away, and he's like, I messed up. I'm gonna do this right now. And since then,
that's what you want from good leaders,
for sure.
Like, nobody is right all the time.
No, totally. And he did that. And I think since then he's done an amazing job between the trade war, between COVID and what happened then. And I admit that before COVID really became a huge thing, I was like, wow, he cut he cut the rates to zero before anything really got out of control.
And this is what people don't understand about how important the Fed is. The Fed is our Fed is the pride, or it's our pride that we have a financial system that's strong, and the Fed is what makes it strong.
Correct.
They try to contain inflation, but also promote growth, right? That make that balance happen for a company that is $30 trillion is not easy. You know,
that, you know, the argument, you know, tends to be made that the most powerful man in the world is not Joe Biden, but is actually Jerome Powell.
Totally. I mean, when he speaks, you know, people listen, right?
Money moves quickly.
And he basically, he guards our financial
absolutely
system. So that's,
so speaking of leaders, and you know, State of the Union was a couple days ago.
You know, still fresh.
What are your impressions of Biden and what's going on right now? Let's not get too political here. Let's just talk a couple points on you know, clean energy and Russia and that kind of stuff.
I am disappointed with Biden, and I'm a Democrat, but I'm disappointed with Biden because he's hating so much on Elon Musk. It doesn't make sense to me.
You can't say his name.
It doesn't say. I mean, this is probably the most consequential human being in history right now, from sustainable energy to SpaceX to
our national defense. SpaceX.
And you know, he can't acknowledge the fact the all the things that Tesla has done for EVs and so forth, and then you go with GM and Ford. Is frankly embarrassing.
It is embarrassing, and you know, I say that to Biden, Elon Musk is like Voldemort from Harry Potter. Is he who must not be named. You can't say his name because if you say his name, the boogeyman that is the unions are going to get you.
Listen, we all want Biden was the right person to come in after the disaster that Trump was, right? And all want him to be the grown up in the room, and I think he did that for some part. But now it's just getting ridiculous. That he's not really acknowledging this stuff. State of the Union was a miss because green energy should have led. They should have been all about green energy.
Absolutely,
should have all about countering Russia.
Strength, like the strength and the ability that we have right now to go on record and say this is the moment. Right. And by the way, it comes on the heels of 2 weeks ago where the UN issued the most dire warning for climate change ever. Like this is the moment to step in and don't just say it, but like really lead with it and mean it.
Yeah, and that's really what's missing from the Democratic Party right now is that lack of like direction, of decisiveness. And frankly, we have an oil industry in America, and I'm not for promoting more oil or more fossil fuels, but we need to support our producers right now so we can actually counteract Russia and not go to another Iran or another foe to
OPEC
get more
plus.
oil.
OPEC plus now. Now they have a plus.
Saudi Arabia, you know what I mean? They actually refuse to pump more oil even though they have more capacity.
Why would you work harder and make less money?
So I think, I hope Mr. President, you're listening.
I think he's listening for sure.
You're really making a big mistake not supporting, this green movement in a way that you're supposed to, not just by saying it, but also by supporting
by action. And again, to be clear, we're both, I wouldn't consider myself a Democrat or a Republican, but we both voted Democrat. So, this is not a political issue. This is a world issue. This is the future. Like my child, my son, like will have to deal with the repercussions of climate change. Like for real, not like, when he's 80 years old, like when he's my age, this is going to be a huge issue.
100%. It already is, man.
But I mean, like, we're going to feel this like we've never felt it before. And I don't care what anybody says. Climate change is real. There's no doubt about it in the science. And so we got to back this up.
And listen, like we talked about Zelensky rising up during crises. This is a crisis, and this is a moment for us to galvanize and support more sustainable energy, but also, do it together.
And let's not let politics get in the way, please.
Exactly. And that's kind of what it is, right? Everything is worried about what they say in politics.
We don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Just be on the side of humanity.
So, I mean, we talked about a lot of things today. This is not just about money, because the moment calls for a conversation.
Absolutely.
And listen, we don't have the answers. I don't
you don't. I thought we gave them all right now.
These are tough times.
Really tough, for sure. Not to make light of this. Again, this is a show for entertainment purposes. We all support what the Ukrainians are doing. We're all behind them. We always like to end on a message of hope, right? Things look bleak right now.
I told you my bull case, man.
Listen, I would love, if that happens at 10, we're coming back on and we're doing a podcast solely dedicated to you and your bull case.
I'm going to start charging a membership, dude.
Done. Well, I think the world would pay for it right now. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's, I'm going to insert cliche here. It's always darkest before the dawn. So you have to just, as far as your emotions go, try not to spend all your time looking at Twitter and
also like I learned this from Ross, right? Fear sells a lot better
100%
than hope, right? And that's what you see a lot out there right now.
Absolutely. Fear, if it bleeds, it leads. That phrase. And that's CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Man, they love this, and that's sad to say, but they do love this. So
we'll end with a message of hope for our Ukrainian friends and clients. And we have many of them.
Absolutely. And in the end, we think everything's going to be okay. From a money standpoint, we've just hunkered down. This too shall pass. Don't
be rash.
Exactly.
Don't, emotions are are your worst enemy in times like
Absolutely.
this. You know?
And this is not the first time, and it won't be the last time. And our clients will call us again after this one is over, and the next one, and the next one. And that's why we're here. So reach out to us.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, Hatem. Good to see you again, and look forward to the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.